I want to do something special for this second hour for y'all, because I know certainly that topic of conversation out there has come, well, because I've certainly have enjoyed our students when it comes to our interns that have come in. 6 interns for me so far this year. Yeah, we might as well call it intern palooza out there, especially for this fall semester. But Nick Saban called out the students, folks, on Wednesday. And I want to give, especially when it comes to Trey and AJ on the other side of the glasses, you can give us a call at 205-342-9904. Give you a reminder of what Nick Saban had to say on Wednesday.
Well, I think it's great. I think that, I think what makes this a special experience here is when we have, great support from everybody in the program, everybody that supports the program, all of our fans, all of our students. I can honestly say I was a little disappointed that there weren't more students at the last game. And I think we're trying to address that. I don't think they're entitled to anything either. And me personally, I think it ought to be first come, first serve. And if they don't want to come to the games, they don't have to come. But I'm sure there's enough people around here that like to go to the games and would like for them to come too, because they support the players. So I've never said anything about that before. When I first came here, we used to play that tradition thing up there, and everybody was cheering and excited and happy, and there was great spirit. All right, now they don't even cheer. They introduce our players, nobody even cheers. So I don't know, maybe there's something else somebody ought to talk about. Maybe I shouldn't talk about it. Maybe I already talked about more than I should. So you all can beat me up for that if you want. But look, our players work too hard, and they deserve to have everything and people supporting them in every way and have tremendous spirit for what they've done. And they may not be able to continue to do it. We're going to work hard to try to continue that. But there's a part of it that other people need to support them too. And there's got to be a spirit that makes it special to play here, because that's what makes it special to be here. And if that's not here, then does it continue to be special to be here or not? I mean, that's a question everybody's got to ask, and I'm asking it right now. So I'm hopeful that we've always had great people travel on the road with us and had great spirit on the road. And we've got great fans, so I appreciate that. But, to see half the student section not full, I've never seen that since I've been here before.
Now, it's been a while, folks, since I've actually sat in the student section as either an undergrad or a grad student at the University of Alabama, but it hasn't been too far removed for me from being a student at the University of Alabama, when we didn't really have a whole lot of ball games where the student section was even, let's say, a third empty. But Nick Saban pointing it out Wednesday and last night on Hey Coach. So I'm going to bring in some of our interns for a little student perspective on this that we really haven't gotten a whole lot of, at least on our radio station. So we got AJ, Trey, and we got another one of our interns that just called in to our phone lines at 205-342-9904. William Galloway will join us here in just a moment. But first off, to Trey and to AJ, starting with AJ, your thoughts on what Nick Saban had to say from Wednesday.
I think that Nick Saban woke up and he did not have his oatmeal cream pies? Is that his little tradition?
2 Little Debbies.
2 Little Debbies. He didn't wake up, and that was not the first thing he did, so he woke up a little angry. Is this school and is the football program still special? Yes. It's almost a little too special, and I think that's a product of our environment. We become greedy. We become used to winning. And when we play a school like Louisiana Lafayette and we're up over 50 at halftime, that's what you're going to see.
Now, did you go to the game Saturday?
Unfortunately, I could not. So I don't want to be blamed as if I just sat home all day, did nothing. I work. I have to provide.
Now, I know Trey didn't go to the game, so Nick Saban had a little message for you there, Trey.
Well, I mean, at this point, I'm going to actually throw this one back on Nick Saban himself, because he only gives us 3 games a season in our student package. And Louisiana was not one of the ones that I had. So at the end of the day, I'm just like you on Saturday, a regular fan trying to get a ticket. And Pensacola was calling my name. It was not in the cards for this weekend.
So you know what? I know at least 2 of our 3 students that we have right now out of state. But William, like me, folks, like me growing up from the state of Alabama, which I'm telling you, William, we're at least you are, and some our type are now a minority when it comes to in-state students, as far as the overall population, first off, a good morning. And you may have heard a little bit of Nick Saban's comments that we played coming in, but you've probably already heard it by now. Some of your thoughts.
Morning, James. Thanks for having me on. So a couple things that I thought, one point he made that was fantastic was the players deserve it. And back to some other students' perspectives, yes, Trey decided to go out of town and, the people have work and stuff like that. Totally get that. But, if you have the chance to go to these games, these players work entirely too hard, and Alabama has put on a product that is above a national standard. I mean, it's so good that people don't, it's so good that it's boring almost. And being from in-state, I've just had an appreciation and enjoyed Alabama football all of my life. And, I think I said this yesterday, but I wanted to go because I can only watch Tua Tagovailoa for a certain amount of games in person in a crimson uniform. And to me, that's really special, especially for being in-state. And so I didn't want to pass up on an opportunity like that.
Do you think some of the student, William, really to all three of you, because I've had that brought up to me yesterday as far as just the amount of students now that come from out of state that, let's just say, like for the two of us, William, you and me grew up as far as rooting for Alabama, as far as Alabama football and college football in general being our primary sport. That's at least our favorite sport, especially Alabama being our favorite team growing up. Do you think that has had some impact as far as just the overall student attendance when it comes to maybe a lot of out-of-state students, especially not from the region, maybe not being as fervent about Alabama and college football as, say, people like you and I from this state?
Yes, and I think that, that brings up an interesting point in terms of, the last time Alabama wasn't good and wasn't nationally prominent, I was in third or fourth grade. And so that means everybody in this, all the students that go to this university were in somewhere between like second through sixth grade when Alabama wasn't good. So they either, didn't care about college football yet, didn't know about Alabama. And so people have just grown up with this expectation and reality that Alabama's going to be number one. They're going to put on a championship product. And, that's who Alabama is. But, my earliest memory of Alabama football was losing for the fourth and fifth Iron Bowl in a row in the mid 2000s, early 2000s.
James, you and I had spoken about this before I came in, and Trey and I were just talking about it. I grew up not a college football fan. I grew up with both my parents having gone to small universities. It was Florida International University, who I'm technically a fan of, but I don't rave about it because they're not a very good program. I even went to the Beef O'Brady Bowl, bowl game that they had against Marshall a decade ago. But it's almost like we're seeing factions now. We're so successful as a football program, we're dividing up. We have people that are older and have been a fan most of their lives. I just yesterday I was listening in and people were talking about how they remember going to the 96 Iron Bowl and this happened and that happened. And they'll look down upon current students of a younger age simply because they weren't alive back then and didn't have the opportunity to witness that or experience it. But now we're trying to make memories and experiences of our own right now. You cannot blame me if someone out there is 65 years old and has been an Alabama fan or an Alabama native their entire life and has gotten to witness and experience even the 78 goal line stand against Penn State, but I didn't because I wasn't alive back then. You cannot blame me for that. I'm 20 years old. Just because I'm 20 years old doesn't mean I can't be an Alabama fan. Alabama is my first love for college sports.
So I want to follow up with you on that, AJ, as far as just kind of describe your opinion, the overall football experience, especially the in-stadium experience at Alabama, from what you've seen since being on campus.
Well, being that Alabama is my first love for college football, simply because I have no other. I've been to other college football games. I've been to University of Miami games. I've been to South Carolina games. I've been around. I've been to FSU games. What I've noticed, though, is Alabama lacks something that most other programs do. Virginia Tech has Enter Sandman. Miami, they have a certain chant. The student section at Alabama, with the first 3 touchdowns, sure, they'll be going crazy. They'll be screaming. But by number 4, they're walking out. And the experience here is fun for the most part. I've brought friends from back home. They've come and visited, with the Shakers singing Sweet Home Alabama, Mr. Brightside. They love it. It's a lot of fun. But it gets to a point where you sit there and you think, okay, what else could I be doing right now? And that's really sad to say because I love the team. And like Will had said, these players deserve the respect of us staying for 4 if they're going to play for 4 because of how hard they work. But for a lot of students, they see it as a burden to have to stay for 4. Why should I have to sit here and watch them if the game's already over?
James Hardy with you, AJ, Trey, and William also with us. And AJ, now I know you kind of clarified and reminded me as well. It's as far as for some of the students at the University of Alabama staying for. Now, this is a foreign concept, admittedly, for me, and certainly for a lot of folks a lot older than me when it comes to this staying for 4 quarters, staying for that full game that Nick Saban all wants us to stay for. As far as an Alabama football home game, but kind of just elaborate for maybe not for you, but for some others, why it may be a burden to stay for 4 quarters.
Well, I'd just like to clarify, and I told you this, and Trey, during the break, I stay for 4. When I go to games, most of the games I've gone to, I stay for 4 unless something has happened that I have to leave. I don't want anybody coming after me as soon as I step out this building, and Nick Saban's just going to be wailing on me. But there are people that I know, close friends of mine, and you can see it in the stands. If you're just there looking at the student section, you will see people just gradually leave. And they're little benchmarks that you, like timestamps. Oh, that's what it's called. Where you just see people leave. It's halftime. There's halfway through the 3rd quarter, and then after the 3rd quarter. If anyone actually stays until the 4th quarter or 2 minutes into the 4th quarter, they're staying. But there are people that, like I said, if it's a blowout game, and Will and Trey, I don't know if you guys are like this at all, but if Alabama's up 48-3 in halfway through the 3rd quarter, there are people that I know that say, you know what? There are either other games on right now. There's other stuff I could be doing. You know what? Like, I appreciate the fact that I got to watch this. The team's great. I don't think anyone does this intentionally hurting the team. No one leaves the in the middle of the game and says, you know what? I'm trying to hurt this football team. No, their mindset isn't in the right place when it comes to supporting the athletic program. And that's with football and all other sports alike. If you're going to go to a game, you want to stay till the end of the game to support those players and show them that you appreciate the work that they put in.
Well, and, and almost I think a part of it, too, is just the social aspect. College kids are so socially driven. And I think sometimes, it gets to be halftime, early 3rd quarter, and a couple people in a big group will say, oh, well, we want to go do this, or, we want to go get some food or do this or whatever. And it almost becomes there's 20 people in one group now out of the stands, and now there's big gaps in the stands. And earlier, you made a good point. You said that Alabama lacks, maybe a good celebration or a good chant. But I think that one thing that Alabama lacks versus other schools, other big-time programs, is hunger at this point. The thing that made it so fun to be a Clemson fan when I was way back in the day was the fact that we would leave games after losing to Boston College or TCU or Florida State or whoever with that taste of bitterness in your mouth. And you remember that. You remember that when you play those schools the next year, when you play that next big game, you get hungry. You stay the whole game because you know how important it is. Since I've been at the University of Alabama, this team has not lost a single game that I've been to. So it's tough for me to kind of get that full circle of emotions, whereas at other schools, kids are living and dying with their teams because their teams are getting to the peak of college football, but they're also dying, unlike this program that has just been absolutely untouchable.
And an example of that, just last week, Penn State at home against Ohio State. Trace McSorley had not lost a game yet at home. That was a packed house at Beaver Stadium. It was a whiteout. I don't know did you watch the game?
A little bit.
Did you watch?
I did.
Ohio State?
Incredible.
I watched every second of that game. My roommate is the world's biggest Penn State fan outside of Pennsylvania. He's not even from Pennsylvania. But the energy that was in there was amazing. And the reason for it, and I think, Trey, you hit the nail right on the head, is because they have the threat of losing. And this is not me complaining. I'm not going to sit here and complain that we have a team with the number one quarterback on the Heisman watch list. I'm not going to sit here and say that we don't have the most number of first-round draft picks and that I don't appreciate that. We're favorited for the national championship to make the playoffs and to go even undefeated and win the SEC championship. I love that. I love the fact that we are favorited in almost everything. But what I don't appreciate is that most students don't appreciate it to a certain degree.
Well, and I think if you go to these other schools, like if you were to go to a Clemson or if you were to go to Ohio State or something like that, and you stay to the end of a game where they're playing, Furman University or Mercer or one of these, low-level FCS schools, their stadiums aren't completely full at the end of the game. And in most of our games, the scores that are going to be the final in those 62-7 or whatever, that's the final in a game like Ole Miss for the University of Alabama. So when you have these blowouts week in and week out, it's just almost become not even fun to go in and watch your team absolutely destroy the opponent.
So let me bring William back in on this. As far as not just for the students, but even just for the fan base in general, how much are we taking this success that Nick Saban's program, and Nick Saban in particular, has brought to Alabama? How much are we taking this for granted?
So much for granted, because if you take this and if you apply it to the Bear Bryant era and you say, okay, well, did Bear Bryant have empty stands? Did students leave and not go to Bear Bryant's games because Alabama was too good? No, I don't think so, because people aren't talking about that. Alabama, I want to go back to this in-state point and say, talk about taking stuff for granted. I personally try to not take anything for granted, in terms of like when I went to that Saturday game this past Saturday and stayed for the whole game, seeing Alabama light somebody up and watching the future, second, third string guys come in and as early as, the third quarter excites me, because it's just watching this dominance that I grew up passionate about. And, I don't want to take that for granted, but I think in general, with the sweeping out-of-state population and just the fans' attitude in general of so much entitlement, as Saban talked about in this press conference, Alabama fans are definitely taking it for granted. Personally, I don't think I am, but I think a lot of fans are, definitely.
We got another timeout to get to, but I do want to continue this discussion as far as just taking it from there. When it comes to how do you improve the overall game day atmosphere, whether you got an Auburn in town, an LSU, or an Arkansas State and a Louisiana Lafayette that's coming to Bryant-Denny Stadium for a non-conference game. We're halfway through this second hour. James Hardy, William, Trey, and AJ with us as well. You can give us a call still. Final 30 minutes of the program at 205-342-9904. Let's take this time out, and we will have more of our student roundtable discussion after this. I've got AJ, Trey, and William, a trio of my interns for this semester. Also, students at the University of Alabama. And folks, Tom, Lance, any of our older callers that we have, certainly any of you that have been to the University of Alabama as a student that could give us some perspective on that student atmosphere from Alabama games past. So I certainly appreciate your perspective out there at 205-342-9904, because I know, AJ, you were telling me during the break, you've got something to get off your chest, my friend.
I do, and just to follow up what you said, I want anyone to call in 205-342-9904 and lecture me and my generation. Tell me what's wrong with my generation and the Alabama football program. Where did that connection cut off? Because clearly it was back in the 90s, according to some of you. So just call in, let us know what we're doing wrong, and we'll see if we can fix that. But Trey and I actually, we were talking during the break. We think we figured out the reason for the low attendance.
We got a solution.
We do. And we figured out what the catalyst was for the problem. Do you have any idea where we could be going with this?
Y'all tell me, what would be your solution then for kind of improving that overall atmosphere and in part attendance when it comes to students, and really when you talk about down the road as far as future alumni, even just attendance in general for Alabama home games?
To get to the solution, we have to find the problem, and I think Trey and I did. James, how was the attendance last year for students? Do you think we had this discussion at all last year?
I don't remember. It's kind of been an issue that comes up, not just for students, but for fans in general.
But nothing this big, where it took up an entire week in between games.
No, that brought Nick Saban's attention, not only in a press conference, but also in Hey Coach last night.
And think about the season before that. We didn't even, this wasn't even a thought.
I think the issue is the excitement factor, like we were talking about with Penn State losing to Ohio State. You know, we have that, are we going to win? Are we going to lose? Last year, student section stayed full for most of the game. We still had the stay for 4, play for 4. But you know who was under center made it a little bit more exciting. I'm not saying Tua's not a better quarterback and that he's not exciting, but who brought that factor into it where you just had to hold your breath, bite your tongue? Who was it?
It was man who actually wears the number 2, still on our team, but is not getting necessarily the same amount of playing time. And maybe people stuck around because it was that wow factor of dual threat of, you know, that dude's going to hurdle a guy to get into the end zone that you don't necessarily have as much with Tua. A little bit of this, maybe just to boil Williams' blood. A little bit of this because this is what we think. But
let me play devil's advocate on that, Trey, before we get Tom and William in here. I think there are, and I've had this point brought up to me by more than one person as well. As far as the fans out there, just the general fans, don't you think a lot of them, certainly on that Tua bandwagon, aren't they coming to see Tua?
Maybe a lot of fans, but not necessarily a lot of students.
Why not throw? Listen, Tua has yet to play a single snap in the fourth quarter, correct? Who has? Jalen. I want to see it blended. Throw Jalen in there in the first quarter, a little bit in the second. This should be, you know, perfectly balanced. There should be something in there that adds that wow factor. Like, hold on, what's going to happen next? We're so successful of a program, we have to think of ways to make in-game experiences more exciting.
You wanted a game day solution, James. There's your game day solution.
All right, William, you have a game day solution for us as far as atmosphere at Bryant-Denny Stadium?
Music. It all starts with the music. I grew up with Dixieland Delight playing, and there was no issue with the home atmosphere, and people didn't have, you know, singing Dixieland Delight wasn't a hot button issue, and now it is, just because of the day and age we live in. And I think the atmosphere has grown softer over the years. Not to say that, you know, it's a bad atmosphere in any circumstance, but you look at, you know, 2014 when Alabama is playing, you know, rap music on the sidelines, and on the sidelines the defense is jumping up and down, waving towels, and you know, just prime home atmosphere. But you think Mississippi State, circa 2015, that home atmosphere was incredible. I really think it starts with the music. But to go to AJ and Trey's point of Tua versus Jalen, and you know, I see where you're coming from, because Jalen made things a whole lot more exciting. Tua is so good that you know he's just going to pick a defense apart, and the uncertainty of Jalen kind of made things a little bit more fun. So I see where you're coming from in that aspect, but also to counter that point, how is it not fun to watch Tua just pick people apart and just rip defenses up? And I mean, he's mind-boggling to watch, and to me, that's fascinating. But to a point, it gets to where Alabama and Tua is so good that it gets boring to watch. And so it kind of comes full circle in that, you know, Jalen, the uncertainty of Jalen made it fun, but also he's a tremendous quarterback. And watching Tua can be really fun until it gets so boring that he is looking off receivers or looking off DBs to hit receivers and scoring 4 touchdowns in a quarter. So, you know, there's points to be made both ways.
Well, before we go any further, we asked for, and certainly I asked for, and always look forward to having Tom join us on our phone lines when it comes to Inside the Locker Room. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, guys. How are y'all?
Doing mighty fine, Tom. How you doing?
I'm good. Listen, I want to say this first of all. The Roundtable, great idea, and y'all all have done a great job and made listening to the show this morning very enjoyable. So I commend you for that, first thing. And second, I think there's a couple of points that's been hit on that I think that are outstanding. And first, I think it was William that brought up the music.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, look, yesterday we had a caller on one of the shows. I forgot which one it was. And he was talking about this DJ they brought in for one season. And I think you mentioned 2014. It may have been that season. But he was jamming the stadium. Everybody was rocking. So I think that's a great point right there, that entertainment, excuse me, goes a long way to keeping people engaged, and especially this year when you got the kind of team that we got where we're annihilating everybody. Give them something else besides football. And plus, I want to say this, 11 o'clock game is 5,000 degrees, is it not? Especially in the East Stand.
Yep.
And, after you get a 4-touchdown lead and everybody lost interest in the game, all they're doing is socializing, it proves to me the students have got a brain. They go, we could be doing this under the shade tree on the quad. So they haul rear end out there to where it's more comfortable, and they just continue the party out there. So that's the things that come to my mind and look, I'm not going to ever say it's not good for Alabama to annihilate. I always love that. But I say give the students a break, and by providing, the music is a universal language. I think you can bring a lot of people together and keep them there if you're giving them some good tunes.
I agree with that 100%. I think the music, the atmosphere, everything. And I love the fact, Tom, that you kind of agreed with the fact that the students could go or should go somewhere else if they can, to the quad, if they want to continue that party elsewhere.
It's 5,000 degrees, and if you've got a brain, you go, hey, I'm sitting out here baking, and why don't I go and do this somewhere where it's more comfortable? I mean, I've got to give them credit for that.
And I think the quad specifically is a great point, because you said earlier, James, what can make this game day experience better? I think the game day experience all around is perfect. I think the tailgating is perfect. The lead up is perfect. It's almost too perfect. When people get in the game and they're sitting there for 40 minutes and it's just a blowout, you don't want to stay. Why not go back to the quad?
I'll tell you what we should do and blow everybody's mind. Count how many people are on the quad for the game.
Should we?
Not how many are in the stadium.
Should we add that into the attendance count, the official attendance count? Is the quad now a new section in Bryant-Denny? Is that what we're just going to?
I think we have to.
Let me ask this to all of you then. Is the pregame then atmosphere as far as the quad among not just students, but really the general fan population maybe more popular at this point than actually the in-game atmosphere than going to the game itself?
Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and say 1,000%. And I don't know how it was.
I think they should be counted because they're there. Mm-hmm. And when the TV cameras pan the quad, everybody's going all over the country going, wow, they're having a good time at that football game. I'd love to be there. And so, hey, if I was Greg Byrne, I'd count it. I'd go, hey, look how many people we're drawing into Tuscaloosa.
Thousands.
Then I'd go down there and hit nukes and et cetera up and say, look how many people we're putting in town for them to be knocking your door down. I mean, it counts, I think.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, like we had touched on, and I was gonna say, the quad is so big and it fits so many people that I know people that get dressed up, look as if they're going to the game, will go to the quad for about 30, 45 minutes, will do what they got to do, and then either stay and watch the game, go into Bryant-Denny, or just go home to watch the game. Either way, if you're here on campus and you're a student, and I think this is what a lot of people don't realize, almost every student here watches the game. Whether it's at home, on your TV, on the radio in the car, at a tailgate on the TV or on the radio, or you're at the
Absolutely.
game. You know, one way or another, students care about this program.
Absolutely. Always have and always will. And but I tell you what, keep sticking them in the sun at 11 o'clock and, you know, play the games at night. You're Alabama. You wield a big stick. I mean, look at Nick Saban. He goes up to ESPN, and they all on their knees. The whole game's up there for the car wash.
Let's not forget, Tom, ESPN holds a pretty big stick themselves when it comes to
I
programming.
will not deny that, but I tell you what, don't tell me that the University of Alabama, in the current atmosphere that's going on in college football, couldn't look out for the students a little bit and make those night games. Come on now.
You know, I think that kind of
Tom, that's a great point. I want to say too, we would not be having this discussion had ESPN put Alabama on SEC Network at 6 o'clock.
Oh, when I saw 11 o'clock game, I had to go outside and hurl. I mean, I knew that was a bad formula. And Alabama is too prestigious, too good, been around too long, helped ESPN when they were starting out, not to be able to say, hey, look, hey, don't do us that way. We need these late afternoon and night games. Come on, give us a break.
Well,
all right, guys, it's a great show. Y'all did a great job. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Tom.
Roll Tide, Tom.
On our phone lines, and we got to take a break, folks. And I'm going to ask each of our three young gentlemen here as far as what makes Alabama football special to them to close out the show. To close out the program, to William, to AJ, to Trey as well. And I'm going to begin with you, William. What makes Alabama football special to you?
It's got to be the tradition. I mean, the enriched success that this university and this program has seen for so many years, for almost the entirety of my lifetime. It's got to be the tradition, the winning, the atmosphere created on campus, and just the buzz that surrounds the program in terms of the constant media attention and things like that. I think it's just that to me is what makes it so special.
I think what makes Alabama football so special to me is a year ago when I got here, I didn't know a whole lot about the program. I had never been to a game. I had never celebrated this team. But from game one and really from day one at the university, it was, you know, that factor of acceptance. And, you know, you're one of us. You can root for this team, even though you haven't been here this whole time. You know, you can come in and support. And I think that's what made it so special to me, was how warm it felt from the beginning.
And finally, for me, like I had said earlier, I'm from Miami. So I could have been a Hurricanes fan, but I grew up not really affiliating with any college football program or any collegiate athletic team in general. And coming here last year, sophomore, and it gave me a home. It gave me a family, and like Will had said, the tradition, that's something that I'd never experienced before. So coming in here and getting hit in the face with that all at once, it was a whole new experience that I love, and I know for a fact I will be a Crimson Tide fan for the rest of my life. Hopefully my kids will be as well.